This is your daily briefing and you are most welcome to it. I think we finally got something to sink our teeth into as far as the whole transfer business is concerned. And so let's waste no time and get straight into it. Charlie Eccleshare for The Athletic. I've mentioned Charlie's name before. He is, to my mind, a good, solid journalist. Absolute breath of fresh air. And this is what we get from somebody whose affairs are in order. And I'm talking about up here, opposed to staring at a blank piece of paper and saying to themselves, how on earth am I going to produce 4,000 words by 5 o'clock? Nuno feels that Brian Gill adds an extra dimension. Reguilon apparently helps sell Spurs to Gill. Golini to join as a backup keeper, and that's worth focusing upon. And Romero is Paratici's first choice centre-back. I think this is all true. I think this is all to the point, and I think this is all worth our consideration. The Gill two pieces there tie up nicely. Golini as a backup keeper really takes a burden from my mind. I'm going to come back to the money in a moment, but never take your eye off the money. But this tells us a nice succinct way of what's happening at Spurs. Di Marzio has been tweeting, Tottenham want to close soon as possible for Romero. The offer is between 40 to 45 million euros plus 10 million in bonuses. The Argentine already has an agreement for the contract, which is his way of saying that personal terms have been thrashed out. 5-year deal plus an option for another. Negotiation seems to be in the pipeline. This is a decent footballer. I won't bore you with the numbers, but his stats are good. This is the centre-back you have been looking for. I should have done my Alec Guinness voice there. This guy is a breath of fresh air. I have to warn you that the money being cited for this deal, not drastically, but it's effectively, there's word going round in certain places that Spurs have started bidding at 35 million euro. It looks to me like there's possibly 10 million euros in potential bonuses. These are the add-ons, don't forget. And don't forget, these have to be triggered. So if Romero does well for Spurs, but he doesn't do that well, or he does well for Spurs, but he doesn't do that well, and he doesn't do too well for his country, then they become irrelevant. And this is what happened with Lamela. But this player, they want, in certain places, they're talking sort of 60 million euros as an opening price. So Di Marzio is just giving you his number, but there are other numbers out there. So I'm just warning you, this guy is not, if this guy comes in for 35 million, I'll be delighted, but I can't see it happening because he's a really good footballer. Fabrizio Romano, are you telling us the truth, Fab? Possibility of Winks to Everton. I'd love it to happen. I wouldn't wish it upon them. That's kind of how I'd reply to that. Yeah, if we go into the numbers, and then we've got a Levy U-turn, which hopefully is a high note to finish on. Logoria, that's the Italian gentleman journalist I mentioned to you the other day. According to what was reported in the Genoese edition of La Repubblica, Tottenham have overtaken all competitors in the race for Sampdoria's Damsgaard. And this is a Danish player that Spurs had identified while Mourinho was still with us. And it's apparently now at the top of Paratici's list. This I'm going to try and get across to you because this again is explaining the Mona Lisa down the phone. You'll be pleased to hear we've got the tech coming out and it's going to be absolutely whiz-o from the weekend. But I've compared using whoscored.com the three players. Excuse me. And the three specific players here are Sonny, Damsgaard and Gill. And the reason for this is because their heat maps are all very similar. Attack-minded, left wing, centre players. Okay, so they're all effectively operating the same space. Sonny is 29. Damsgaard is 21 and Gill is 20. And this is where we come to the sort of magic moment time. If we look at the three of them in context, and by context I mean by their ages, the only thing that separates these three cars, if you like, are the drivers, which is to say they all, forget Sonny, but Damsgaard and Gill look positive, but they don't look anything more than that at this stage. They're prospects. That's why they cost the money that they're costing, which is 25 million euros or there and thereabouts. Which brings me on to my, this sort of segues into the whole thing at the close here, is that once we've established where we are then, that we've got replacements, if you like, or alternates. I mean, if you say that Gill is an alternate, and we've got here that, as Charlie told us, feels Gill adds an extra dimension. I think that's a polite way of saying that he's not going to be starting every single Premier League match next season. That says to me that this is the apprentice, potentially, to Damsgaard, which is great news, but he's only a year older. Unfortunately, that's what you get for the money. So bear with me. If we look at the overall picture, we've got, and I've just pulled the numbers as I think off the top of my head. So if you want to scream and shout at me, by all means do. But if we say, for argument's sake, 42 million for Romero, 25 for Damsgaard, 25 for Gill, and 15 or thereabouts for Golini, that gives us 105 million. We've sold Foyth for, I think it was less than 15 million. This looks like the Harry Kane money. Unless there's a biscuit tin, there's another biscuit tin that Daniel Levy hasn't told us about. Don't forget there was one with 240 million in, but that's before everything went sour on him. And the Sun have got a piece here that says that Club Source said last night, Harry and Charlie got the call at the end of last week. Harry was delighted because he never wanted to leave Spurs, his beloved boyhood club, on bad terms. You never hear boyhood club and it's good news for everybody, do you? It's always a phrase thrown in as somebody's getting screwed. Daniel Levy is a canny operator through and through, blah, blah, Harry's brilliant. Blah, blah. By waiting until now, he's probably put another 20 million or so on the price tag. Contract with City has not been signed, but it's Harry's preference. It says here also preferable from Spurs' viewpoint. I don't see that at all. I think Daniel Levy and Tottenham HOTSPUR would be quite happy if Harry Kane went to play in Venezuela or somewhere. Didn't want to lose into another London side. It's crossing dotting the I's and crossing the T's job. I've said to you all along, I felt Kane's departure was inevitable. I'm now doing the back of a fag packet maths for you on the quite modest potential signings that we've got lined up, and I'm telling you where they're going to feature. This is a slow burn rebuild, and if the money, the Sun have got a little bit, and I don't know if it was themselves or it might have been the Mail that said it wasn't now 100 million or whatever, it was 160 million. I have a feeling, and it's not the time for sniping at Levy, but I have a feeling that not all of the Kane money could be reinvested in players at this stage. The pressures upon Levy, the Bank of England thing's been rejigged. I know some of you out there are just absolutely deaf, dumb and blind to the money. Oh, it's all long term. It's like a mortgage. Yeah, but it's not gone away. That's the problem with you people. You don't understand. It's not gone away. And you'd also think that some of you might wake up to the fact that these debts have been rejigged several times now. Okay, so no, there's no joy or jollity there. These are serious numbers. Nobody in the Premier League owes more than Tottenham Hotspur. So this is what I'm telling you. We've got players coming in here who are I'm going to say modestly priced, because that's what you get in a compressed market maybe, but 25 million and 25 million, those boys are falling into the template for Sonny. If you add the bill up on the back of the beer mat, you get 100 mil. Don't forget, Mourinho was paid off for all this talk from Redknapp Jr. He didn't sack him 6 days before a cup final, so he was free to leave. It still would have cost the club something. So in all, I think this is as good as it gets, as good as it might be. I think if we understand these players for what they are and what they can add, but with the caveat that it ain't going to happen tomorrow. Spurs are going to be, and I've kind of called for it, if you like, in for a period of restoration and healing. And I hope that the juggle works, because this is a really risky window for Daniel Levy, no two ways about it. But if we add all the factors up as they sit today, I think we finally got something we can kind of start processing and something we can get our teeth into. It's going to be a tough season, and I think the demands on this club, we almost want to kind of go off the radar a little bit, if that makes sense, and a little less chit-chat and a little less, we're going to, and just kind of get through this. Desperately need the money to start coming in. I can't emphasise that enough. As far as the existing squad goes, I've told you, I don't think there's any magic to be found there. As long as we're looking at Dyer and we're looking at Winks and we're looking at blah, blah, the best news that we could get out of this window is if we were able to shift somebody for a few quid. And I'm not talking about Harry Winks, because he's probably realistically worth about 14-15 million, and that's all you get out of him. If we could shunt Sanchez onto somebody, and even if we made a loss, which I know Daniel Levy doesn't do, but this is me being super positive here. But if we could do that, that would make a massive difference, because I wouldn't like our shopping list to end at 105 million. I'd like us to get a little bit more magic for our buck. Romero's good, he's a centre-back, but Tottenham fans want to see something a bit more inventive, and I think clutching your rosary beads and hoping for Dele Alli to come good, I won't be doing that. If it happens, I'll rejoice, but I won't repent, because all I'm telling you is how awful he's been for the last 3 or 4 years. So hopefully this is the beginning, and hopefully we can squeeze something a little bit more entertaining onto that list. I don't know what the reality of that is like, but as I say, what would really just provide a little bit more leverage is if we could get somebody for half decent money out the door. And if that was Sanchez or Bergwijn, just a peripheral sort of character that, you know, wouldn't harm us but might allow us to go again. The biggest positive is if we get 4 players in, if we get 4 players in, and only 4, that's 4 new faces in that dressing room. And the more new faces we get in, the healthier this club becomes. Okay, good luck. Keep it Tottenham.